The air on the docking platform shimmered with heat as the Solaris crown descended from orbit like a wounded sun god trying to land without collapsing. Its golden hull, normally radiant, flickered in uneven pulses. Entire sections dimmed to black. Imperial banners hung limp, as if ashamed of their own ship. Daniel Rourke squinted up at the spectacle, one hand lazily shading his eyes, the other holding a metal lunch tin he'd been carrying for 20 years. He muttered, "Looks like someone plugged a toaster into a thunderstorm." 100 Imperial guards snapped their halberds downward at once. Daniel sighed. Yeah, I'm coming." He shuffled forward, steps steady, unhurried, absolutely unimpressed by a starship 10 kilometers long bearing down on him like an angry deity. He'd seen worse. His daughter's 7th-grade science project had nearly melted their garage. The moment the ship touched down, the boarding ramp slammed open with a hydraulic roar. A wave of shimmering blue pressure rolled out, bending the light around it. A figure emerged, tall, cloaked in imperial silver, eyes burning like 2 collapsing stars. The Zirathai Empress. Her voice cracked across the platform like a whip. "Human. Daniel Rourke. Step forward." Daniel blinked. "Can I at least finish my sandwich first?" The guards' halberds all snapped to his throat. The Empress descended, each footstep ringing like a war drum on marble. Her cloak, alive with woven light, billowed behind her. She stopped 3 inches in front of him, tall enough that he had to tilt his head slightly to meet her gaze. Her expression was carved from pure fury. 28 of my engineers," she said, voice icy, "have failed to repair my quantum star drive. 28 of the greatest minds of the Empire. Do you understand what that means?" Daniel shrugged. "That you paid too much for them?" She inhaled sharply, a sound like metal scraping. "Your insolence is offensive." "Most people say charming," he said, then paused. "Well, my daughter says exhausting, but close enough." Her jaw tightened, but there was something else beneath the rage, something Daniel recognized immediately. Fear. He softened his tone. "What exactly is wrong with your ship?" Her eyes flickered. "Its quantum drive core is destabilizing. It may collapse into a zero-point implosion within the cycle. If so, it will annihilate this system and 26 nearby colonies." Daniel whistled. "And you landed it?" "I will not abandon my flagship." Her voice lowered. "Nor my throne." He studied her more carefully. She looked flawless, posture carved from nobility, armor woven with stardust, but her hands trembled ever so slightly behind her cloak. She wasn't just afraid for her empire. She was afraid for her people. Daniel nodded to himself. "All right. Show me." The Empress narrowed her eyes. "You do not understand. Failure here is not an option. Should you miscalculate, the resulting breach will erase us instantly." Daniel patted his lunch tin. "Good thing I never miscalculate." The Empress stared at him like she wasn't sure whether to execute him or hire him as her personal mechanic. Finally, she turned sharply. "Follow." Inside the Solaris crown. The moment they stepped aboard, the lights faltered again, and a deep, shuddering hum rolled through the hull. Daniel felt the vibration in his teeth. "Your drive's singing off-key," he muttered. "This ship does not sing," the Empress snapped. "Everything sings. Engines, pipes, reactors, even people." He glanced at her. "Right now yours is screaming." She stopped walking. "Explain." Daniel pointed at the walls. "Hear that? That's harmonic instability in your quantum lattice. Means something's forcing the drive to resonate on the wrong frequency." She frowned. "But the diagnostics..." "Diagnostics don't catch everything," Daniel said. "Especially sabotage." The Empress froze mid-step. Her cloak stilled. "You believe this was intentional?" "Lady," Daniel said, "I've fixed everything from shuttle engines to military cruisers. Nothing, and I mean nothing, breaks the way your drive is breaking unless someone wanted it to." The temperature in the corridor felt like it dropped 10 degrees. "My court is loyal." Daniel snorted. And my son swore he didn't draw that mustache on the family holo picture. For a moment, her mask of royal control cracked. Only a moment. Then her tone hardened. Come. You will see the core. The quantum core chamber. The doors opened with a heavy groan, and Daniel stepped into a cathedral of machinery. 100 vertical conduits spiraled around the chamber like glowing pillars. Energy arced between them in unstable, flickering bursts. The ring-shaped quantum drive at the center pulsed violently, once emerald, now bleeding into red. The air tasted like ozone and burning metal. Even Daniel stared for a moment. Yep, he said slowly. That's bad. The Empress's voice was low. My engineers declared it unrepairable. Daniel cracked his knuckles. Well, to be fair, they're not wrong. This is one of the most advanced star drives ever built. Then he grinned. Luckily, I'm just a dad from Earth with a toolbox and poor impulse control. The Empress blinked. You intend to fix it? That's why you kidnapped me, right? I summoned you. With armed guards. That is standard Imperial protocol. For kidnapping? For urgency. Daniel stepped closer to the core. All around him alarms flickered like dying stars. He opened his old metal lunch tin. Inside was not a lunch, just his personal kit of little tools, worn smooth from years of use. A micro-welder. A universal spanner. A homemade resonance meter. A screwdriver older than the Empress's empire. Her brows furrowed. You expect to repair my star drive with that? Daniel tucked the tin under his arm. I fixed my dishwasher with a fork and a prayer. This'll be fine. The Empress stared at him, and for the first time, her voice softened. Barely. Daniel Rourke, if you succeed, I will owe you a debt no ruler has owed a human. He nodded. Then let's earn it. He walked straight toward the unstable heart of the ship, sparks raining around him like falling stars. Behind him, the Empress whispered, almost too quiet to hear. Do not die. Daniel grinned over his shoulder. Not planning on it. I've got a daughter's birthday next week. Then he placed his hands on the trembling core, and the entire ship held its breath. Daniel leaned against the quantum core's containment ring, letting his fingers hover just above the flickering lattice. Sparks danced like fireflies, yet he remained calm. Around him, the Empress hovered, arms folded, her cloak brushing the floor. Start, she said sharply. Explain why you're confident. Daniel's eyes scanned the core, tracing the chaotic patterns of energy. Your engineers? Smart people. Brilliant, even. But brilliance can blind you. They're trained to follow protocols, not think outside the datasheet. And someone tampered with the system. Her eyes narrowed. Tampered? Intentional sabotage, Daniel said matter-of-factly. Someone inserted a harmonic disruptor in the sublayer of the lattice. It's subtle, probably placed during final assembly. The Empress gasped softly. Impossible. That chamber is secure. Only 28 of my engineers, the royal technomancers, and I have access. Daniel smiled faintly. Someone masked their access. Cloaked it from the logging protocols. You didn't notice because no one expected a human dad to find the trick. Her gaze flickered with a mixture of anger and awe. You have only minutes before the core destabilizes completely. Show me your plan. Daniel crouched, running his hands along the conduit. First, you need to understand what's happening. The core is over-resonating at 6.33 terahertz. That's beyond human sensor range, but your ship's quantum arrays catch it. Unfortunately, your engineers calibrated them to average thresholds. The disruptor causes localized resonance spikes the arrays ignore. She tilted her head. In plain words, it's singing at the wrong notes, like a piano with one key sticking. Eventually, that one key breaks the entire board. Daniel tapped a glowing ring. If we don't adjust it, boom. Boom. Daniel pointed at a warning display. The readouts blinked red. Supernova-class blast. Take the whole quadrant with it. The Empress inhaled sharply. Then repair it. Daniel studied the lattice. He pulled a small, handcrafted resonance meter from his lunch tin and pressed it against one of the arcing conduit. A quiet beep hummed. Yep, there it is. Someone rigged a phase inverter here. Can't see it visually, too small, nested inside the lattice weave. He looked up. 28 engineers didn't spot this because they all assumed the design was perfect. Everyone trusts what's shiny and documented. Humans? We just stare at it and go, "Huh, that doesn't seem right." Your confidence is irritating, the Empress said, but there was a glimmer of something else, respect. Proceed. Tracing the sabotage. Daniel climbed along a maintenance catwalk, crouched low as arcs of plasma hissed around him. He carried his tiny kit, tools dangling from his belt. The Empress floated behind him, guarded yet curious. He stopped at a junction deep within the core. Here, he said. See this microfracture? Tiny, almost invisible. Someone inserted a resonance disruptor, probably intending the core to fail after a week. Lucky for you, I noticed early. Why would they do this? She asked. To assassinate me? Maybe. Maybe to start a war. Maybe just to make your fleet look incompetent. Imperial politics is messy. And humans? We don't even get your politics. We just fix stuff. She frowned. I do not understand your confidence. Daniel smirked. I've fixed worse with duct tape and baling wire. Now watch carefully. I'm going to remove the disruptor without collapsing the lattice. The human approach. He attached a tiny harmonic stabilizer to the junction. A soft hum pulsed through the lattice, responding immediately. Sparks dimmed slightly. Daniel squinted, adjusting dials. The Empress gasped. You are touching the lattice directly. He shrugged. Sometimes the old ways work better than fancy gadget. Your engineers? They overthink everything. Humans? We just touch. He reached into the lattice, guiding the stabilizer. Microfractures realigned. The lattice's chaotic glow softened, the hum dropping an octave. The Empress's expression shifted from disbelief to cautious awe. You are succeeding. Daniel glanced over his shoulder. Barely. The disruptor is tricky. Nested inside the quantum weave. Could explode if mishandled. She swallowed. Then continue, human. He grinned. Gladly. Discovery of a trail. As he worked, Daniel's fingers traced a faint trace pattern, a residue left by the disruptor's unique energy signature. It formed a path, almost like breadcrumbs. He stepped back and followed it with his eyes. Interesting. Whoever did this wanted someone to fail. Left it subtle enough that only an outsider would notice. The Empress leaned closer. You think they are still aboard? Maybe, Daniel said. Maybe not. But whoever planted this knew it'd take 28 engineers to miss it. That tells me one thing. Confidence in our enemy is a weapon. He tapped a console. Data began streaming. And see this. He pointed at a faint log. Someone masked their access. But not perfectly. There, left a microtrace in the diagnostic logs. Could have been intentional, could have been careless. Either way, it points to a specific department in your fleet. Her eyes widened. You can identify the saboteur? Soon. First, the repair. The core stabilizes. Daniel inserted a final stabilizer, his hands moving with methodical precision. Sparks arced briefly, then the hum of the core smoothed into a steady, deep tone. The lattice glowed emerald again. He wiped his brow. There. Core's stabilizing. Just enough to prevent catastrophic collapse. The Empress took a step closer. You have done what 28 engineers could not. Daniel shrugged. Just a dad with tools and common sense. Funny how that works. She paused, considering him, then said quietly, almost reverently. You have saved my flagship. My people. Perhaps the Empire itself. Daniel glanced at her. All in a day's work. But the saboteur? Still out there. The Empress nodded. Find them. Daniel grinned. Already got a trail. Let's see who underestimated a human dad. Behind them, the ship's systems hummed with new life, its heart beating strong again, but the game of imperial politics had only just begun. The corridors of the Solaris Crown smelled faintly of ozone and scorched metal, a lingering reminder of the quantum core's near meltdown. Daniel walked steadily, tools clinking at his belt, following the microtrace he had discovered in Chapter 2. Behind him, the Empress's entourage shifted nervously. Guards, technicians, and royal aides gave him wide berth, clearly unsure whether to fear or admire him. "Explain what you're doing," the Empress said, her voice a mixture of command and curiosity. "We cannot risk another incident." Daniel glanced at her over his shoulder. "Simple. Whoever sabotaged the drive left a trail, tiny energy fingerprints that most people miss. I'm just following the breadcrumbs." She raised an eyebrow. "Breadcrumbs? On a quantum starship? You speak in riddles." He smirked. "Imperial engineers are smart. But they overthink things. I look at the problem sideways, and suddenly the answer jumps out at me." The Empress didn't reply. She only followed silently, her cloak brushing the deck. The evidence emerges. Daniel stopped at a junction near the engineering bay. He crouched and ran his hands along a conduit. "Here it is." He tapped a faint micro-residue. "Someone rerouted subspace harmonics through this line. It's clever. Too clever for a junior tech." He brought up a portable analyzer and waved it over the conduit. A holographic trace materialized, a jagged, faintly glowing pattern like lightning frozen in midair. The energy signature matched the disruptor he had removed from the core. Daniel muttered, Only one person has access to both the core and this subsystem. Someone in the High Council's engineering division. Someone who thought no human could ever notice." The Empress leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "You speak of betrayal within my court?" Daniel nodded. "Yep. And if they tried to make it look like an accident, we'll catch them before they can pull the next stunt." He tapped his portable console, cross-referencing security logs. The trail pointed to Commander Vrykal, a high-ranking court official known for his ambitious streak. He had both motive and opportunity. The Empress's lips tightened. "Vrykal. I trusted him." Daniel shrugged. "Trust is nice. But sometimes you have to follow the facts." Confronting the court. Within minutes, Daniel, escorted by 2 guards, reached the High Council chamber. The room gleamed with polished starlight, walls lined with ornate panels of alien alloys. Council members froze as the Empress entered, flanked by the human mechanic. Daniel stepped forward, holding up his analyzer. "Ladies and lords of the Council," he said, voice calm, "someone here sabotaged the Solaris Crown." Gasps filled the chamber. The Empress's eyes blazed as she addressed her court. "I demand the guilty party reveal themselves immediately." Vrykal, seated arrogantly near the center, did not flinch. His eyes, sharp and calculating, met Daniel's. "And you are a human? What right have you to accuse a counselor of the Empire?" Daniel smirked. "Right? I have facts. This trace," he waved the analyzer, "matches energy signatures only you could access. The subspace harmonics, the disruptor, it all leads straight to you." A murmur ran through the council. Vrykal rose, cloak swirling. "Preposterous. You are a mere tinker, an outsider, a human dad who just saved your flagship from annihilation," Daniel interrupted smoothly. "And I'm pointing right at you." The Empress's voice thundered. "Vrykal, stand down. Explain yourself." The counselor's lips twisted into a cold smile. "Explain? I simply tested the limits of your prized star drive. If it failed, perhaps your empire would see the need for stronger leadership. Did you truly think it was sabotage? Or just a chance to show your weakness?" Daniel tilted his head. "Nice try. But leave fingerprints and energy residues, and your cleverness becomes obvious to someone who actually looks. Which is me." He pressed a button on the analyzer. A 3D projection of the sabotage appeared above the table, highlighting Vrikal's access logs, energy manipulations, and a timeline of the fault insertion. Even the most skeptical council members gasped. The confrontation heats up. Vrikal glared at Daniel. "You, human, dare humiliate me before the Empress?" Daniel shrugged. "I just did the math. Turns out humans aren't as easy to trick as you thought." The Empress stepped forward, her aura shimmering with authority. "Vrikal, your crimes end here. You endangered my fleet, my people, and the Empire itself. You will face the High Tribunal." The counselor's composure cracked. How could you?" Daniel tilted his head, casually inspecting the core projection. "You underestimated one thing. Humans have this annoying habit of fixing things that others break, even when the breaker is clever." Vrikal's anger boiled, but the room's attention was fixed on him. The Empress raised her hand, and guards closed in. Daniel leaned back, hands in his pockets, watching the high-ranking saboteur finally realize he had been outmaneuvered by a human dad with a toolbox. Aftermath in the council. The Empress turned to Daniel, expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she smiled. The first genuine smile Daniel had seen on an alien royal face. "You have not only repaired my flagship," she said, voice steady, "but you have revealed a traitor in my midst. I owe you more than words can express." Daniel shrugged. "I'm just glad I didn't have to call my daughter for help." A counselor whispered to another, "A human? And he just did what 28 of our finest could not." Daniel caught the whisper and smirked. "Yep. Humans. Small, clever, and annoyingly persistent." The Empress nodded. "Prepare to return to the core. I want a full diagnostic run. We must ensure there are no further tricks." Daniel slung his toolkit over his shoulder. "No worries. One human dad versus one overcomplicated starship? I've got this." As they walked back, Daniel glanced at the Empress. "By the way, you might want to start trusting humans a little more." She only smiled faintly. But there was respect in her gaze now, a silent acknowledgement that Earth ingenuity could rival even the most advanced alien science. And somewhere deep in the ship's bowels, Vrikal's suppressed fury simmered, a threat that had not yet vanished. The Solaris crown shuddered like a living beast, its core pulsing erratically despite Daniel's earlier stabilization. Sparks danced along conduits, and the low hum of the lattice occasionally spiked into ear-splitting screeches. Daniel stood at the edge of the core chamber, toolbox in hand, surveying the chaos. The emergency lights cast long, flickering shadows across the gleaming floors. "Looks like the old girl's trying to throw a tantrum," he muttered. The Empress hovered behind him, eyes fixed on the core. "The readings indicate a secondary destabilization. This is worse than I feared." Daniel sighed, opening his lunch tin-sized kit. "Right. That's what happens when someone tries to make a starship explode on your watch. Let's see what we're dealing with." He crouched beside the lattice, scanning the conduits with his portable resonance meter. Tiny, almost invisible cracks traced along subspace channels. Sparks hissed and jumped as energy leaked from the microfractures. "Yep," Daniel muttered, "someone wasn't just ambitious, they were thorough. Whoever did this wanted the core to go pop before anyone could catch it." Working under pressure. The hum escalated into a high-pitched wail. Daniel glanced at the Empress. "Time frame." She stiffened. 3 minutes before automatic shutdown triggers containment protocol. Fail, and the implosion will be catastrophic. Daniel nodded calmly. 3 minutes, huh? Piece of cake if you ignore the insane odds. He began adjusting microstabilizers along the lattice, each insertion requiring precise timing. Sparks flew. The lattice quivered. Every movement had to be perfect. One misstep could trigger the core's collapse. The Empress watched silently, the tension in her posture betraying her royal composure. Guards hovered at a safe distance, unsure whether to intervene or flee. Daniel's hands worked with a surgeon's precision. Each microfracture he repaired triggered a subtle ripple through the lattice. He whispered to himself, Easy, easy, steady. Improvised genius. As the seconds ticked by, Daniel realized the core's energy was fluctuating beyond the stabilizer's capacity. The disruptor, though removed, had left residual harmonic distortions. "All right," he said, "time for Plan B. When standard fixes fail, humans improvise." He rummaged in his kit and pulled out a small spool of nanofilament wiring. Connecting it across several nodes, he manually rerouted subspace harmonics to bypass the weakest conduit. Sparks erupted, arcing across the chamber, but the lattice responded. The Empress gasped. "You are rewiring the lattice with Earth materials." Daniel grinned. "Yep. Sometimes the fancy alien tech is just too much. A little wire, a little patience, and boom, she sings again." He carefully adjusted the phase angles of the rerouted conduits, listening to the hum. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the shrieking spikes softened. "Core's stabilizing," Daniel announced. "Almost there." The ticking clock. 3 minutes now down to less than 1. The lattice pulsed red. Warning lights flashed violently. Sparks showered like miniature meteor storms. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, ignoring the danger. "Okay, just one final tweak. Need to synchronize the quantum oscillators manually." He climbed to the central ring, placing his palms directly on the pulsating lattice. Sparks danced across his gloves, but he did not flinch. "Hold steady, breathe, line it up," he whispered. His eyes flicked across oscillation readouts on his meter, fingers moving with astonishing precision. The Empress held her breath, guards frozen, and the entire crew of the Solaris Crown seemed to wait as one. With a final twist of his wrist and a deft adjustment of the improvised wiring, the lattice suddenly went still. The red glow vanished, replaced by the deep, steady emerald pulse of a healthy quantum core. Daniel leaned back, grinning despite soot streaking his face. "And that, Your Highness, is how you fix a starship that 28 engineers couldn't touch." The Empress reacted. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then the Empress's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. You have done what was thought impossible," she said quietly. "Not for glory, not for power, but simply because you can." Daniel shrugged. "Just a dad doing his job. Only difference is, I didn't have to follow a manual." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Daniel Rourke, your ingenuity, your courage, your persistence have earned the respect of the Empire. I would be honored if you accepted a place among my personal engineers." Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "Thanks, but I think I'll pass. I've got a daughter and a life back home. Besides, I'm better when I'm called in only for emergencies." The Empress studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. But know this, your name will be remembered throughout the Empire as the human who saved the Solaris Crown." A narrow escape. As the adrenaline of the repair faded, a new warning flashed on the console. Residual energy spikes, minor but potentially dangerous, remained in secondary conduit. Daniel tightened a few stabilizers, smoothing the oscillations. The lattice hummed steady. The ship's systems whirred back to life. The engines roared, power redistribution stabilized, and the crew cheered silently from observation deck. Daniel wiped soot from his hands. "All good. She's solid now. And if anyone else tries sabotage, they'll have to be cleverer than a human dad with duct tape and nanofilament." The Empress nodded, her tone softened with admiration. "You are extraordinary. The galaxy has underestimated humans for too long." Daniel smiled faintly. "Told you so." The Solaris Crown hummed like a contented giant, stabilized, alive, and ready to sail the stars once more. Daniel Rourke stood in the central command chamber, hands resting casually on his toolkit. His face was streaked with soot, gloves scorched, but his eyes sparkled with that quiet confidence only a human could carry. The Empress, radiant in her ceremonial silver cloak, stepped forward, her posture a mix of command and genuine admiration. "Daniel Rourke, she said, her voice carrying through the chamber, you have done the impossible. You have repaired the Solaris crown, prevented the destruction of my fleet, and uncovered betrayal within my council. Daniel scratched the back of his neck. Well, someone had to do it. And apparently, that someone was a dad from Earth. She paused, letting the words sink in for everyone present. The guards, counselors, and remaining engineers all stared at him as if seeing a creature from legend. You will be honored, she said. Not merely as a mechanic, but as a savior of the Empire. Daniel shrugged, hiding a grin. Honestly? Just happy I didn't have to call my daughter for help. The Empress's rare, genuine smile spread across her face. Humans are remarkable. Their ingenuity, their courage, their persistence. Perhaps we have underestimated them for too long. Confronting the saboteur. The Empress gestured toward the chamber doors, where Vrykal was held by guards. His cloak was disheveled, his once proud posture now cracked with disbelief and rage. Commander Vrykal, she said, her tone icy, you have endangered this ship, my fleet, and the lives of millions. How do you defend yourself? Vrykal's eyes darted to Daniel, burning with humiliation. You, this human, has no authority. I am a high counselor. Daniel stepped forward, holding his resonance meter like a scepter. Authority's nice until it fails. You tried to blow up a flagship. You left fingerprints, energy traces, and logs that any clever person could follow. And here we are. The Empress's voice boomed, silencing the mutters of the council. Vrykal, your crimes are evident. You will stand trial before the High Tribunal. Any plea you wish to make now will be noted. Vrykal's anger turned to panic. This is impossible. A human? How could a human uncover my work? Daniel shrugged. We're adaptable. And sometimes we just touch things and notice when they don't line up. Call it intuition. Call it stubbornness. Call it dad logic. The guards dragged Vrykal away, his protests echoing down the hall, drowned by the whispers of admiration for the human who had saved them all. Recognition and respect. With the immediate danger resolved, the Empress summoned her council. Daniel stood at her side as she addressed the assembly. This human, Daniel Rourke, has done what 28 of our greatest engineers could not. His skill, ingenuity, and courage have preserved not only this ship but the stability of the Empire itself. He shall be honored and remembered for generations. Counselors murmured, heads bowed in reluctant respect. Engineers whispered among themselves, stunned that a human could surpass their elite ranks. Even the guards seemed in awe. Daniel smiled faintly. Honestly, I just fixed a ship. That's my job. The Empress approached him, lowering her voice. You have shown us the true potential of your kind. Perhaps humanity is more than we imagined. Daniel chuckled. We're stubborn. And creative. And sometimes annoying. But hey, that seems to work. The Empress's eyes sparkled with admiration. Indeed. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humans for far too long. A human's touch. Later, Daniel walked the corridors of the Solaris Crown, checking minor systems, adjusting conduits, and leaving small tweaks in his wake. The crew had begun to whisper stories of the human dad who saved the flagship. Some claimed to have seen him crouched under the quantum lattice, hands glowing faintly from energy feedback, repairing the impossible. Others said he had been everywhere at once, touching every failing system at exactly the right time. He paused by the observation deck, gazing at the stars streaking past as the ship prepared to depart. The Empress joined him, silent for a moment. You have changed how we view humanity, she said quietly. Not as subjects, not as tools, but as equals. You have earned our respect in a way few outsiders ever could. Daniel smiled, leaning on the railing. I'm just glad I could help. That, and I really like a good challenge. She chuckled softly. We shall see if your kind can continue to surprise us. Perhaps the galaxy will need more of your stubborn ingenuity in the future. Daniel shrugged again. If it does, we'll be ready. Humans always are. The Empire remembers. As the Solaris crown lifted from the docking bay, its quantum drive humming smoothly, the crew gathered along the deck, watching the human who had saved them. The Empress raised her hand in salute, a gesture of respect and acknowledgement rarely given outside her species. Daniel waved back casually, a simple dad in a galaxy of royalty, brilliance, and intrigue. And somewhere, in the shadowed corners of the High Council, whispers began about how humans, small, clever, persistent, could change the balance of power in ways no one had anticipated. The galaxy had witnessed a simple truth: underestimate humans at your peril. And Daniel Rourke, humble, stubborn, brilliant, had proven it beyond question.